Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Have you seen the back and forth going on between the banks and stablecoin issuers? Have you seen it? It's been developing for quite some time. I used to talk about this all the time. Remember, and this all goes back to XRP and something that they don't want the people to know. After this, right? I want you to go look this up. Google it, right? Use your AIs. It doesn't make a difference. Look this up for yourself after we speak about this, okay? This is important. I mean, if you're interested in that XRP price going intergalactic, stablecoin, the BIS said years ago, and we've been on top of this, they said stable coins aren't stable. So then I started over the summer to ponder, if you remember that series of videos, why would you use something that's not stable? How could you possibly, why would you put this out at the forefront knowing that literally they can't run without the liquidity of the native tokens? Why? Because they're not stable, number one. We've already seen stablecoin get depegged. We've already seen stablecoins involved. Like, they played their part. They weren't the major aspect, but they played their part in bank runs already. We've seen accounts get drained and frozen because of that already. That was like 3 years ago. The whole Silvergate Bank and SVB, all those banks going down, right? So then why would you put that out front like that, huh? Unless there's something else. Well, the banks have been saying that now. Now they sound like what I was iterating. And they're saying, well, wait, stable coins could drain accounts. They're going to contribute to bank account erosion, right? And then you have others on the opposite side, like Coinbase, saying, no, that's a myth. Account erosion is a myth. Right. Coinbase, you literally were some of the ones who froze stablecoin accounts when everything went wonky. I was there. I lived it. How does that work into the XRP exploding agenda? Folks, first, let's start here. The banks have been set up. I'm pretty sure of it. We were discussing in the video yesterday. Did you see that one? That was a good one. That had information in it I think everybody needs to absorb. I'm not joking. These last few videos been serious business. We were discussing in that video the possibility of bringing down the system artificially to benefit from the skyrocketing prices of the native cryptos. Because they would. Those native cryptos, the ones that have liquidity, a liquidity aspect to them, can be used, or you can profit off of them. Not you, but like the companies. I mean, anybody who's holding them will profit. Anybody who's holding them will profit. Some banks go down and they decide to tap that liquidity aspect because, like Ripple said, XRP was made for the banks. They've said that multiple times now. Look it up. They take over what was made for them, inflate its value, because then they can pull from that liquidity to fill the gap. Oh, this liquidity came out of here because of stable coins. Let's take this liquidity out of this overinflated XRP liquidity and put it in here to fill the gap so we can survive as banks and companies. You see how that works? It also fills the gap that that companies like, or institutions rather, like the FDIC can't fill. The FDIC ran out of money. Are people not seeing this? It's all tying together. They ran out of money. So what they went in and did during those collapses, they went in, used a few loopholes. Yes, they did, because they couldn't do a bailout, but they did essentially what was equivalent to a bailout. Allowed the banks to draw unlimited funds for years and years and years after those collapses. We saw it. We read the interviews. Even a few banks came out like a year or two later and said, well, why wouldn't we borrow? We didn't need to borrow because someone called them out on it. They said, well, why wouldn't we borrow if we're able to? So banks that didn't even need it were accessing that capital. So the FDI, but the quintessence is this: FDIC ran out of money. So now we know that if there's major bank collapses, because that was just like 3, 4, or 5 banks over that half of a year. You had like 2 or 3 in the beginning of the year. You had 2 in the summer. And they couldn't handle 5. Folks, you're sitting on the how can I say, the Rubicon, this line in the sand where there's thousands of banks right there, thousands of banks on that line waiting to collapse. They need a new liquidity provider. Now, I know everyone else is thinking XRP, bridge currency, all these other uses. Ripple used to say what? Liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. Wait a minute. They used to repeat it 3 times. There's a reason for that. That's when someone says something 3 times, they want to drive it home into your mind. The question is why? Wait a minute. Liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. But you're telling me that this particular asset was made for the banks. Banks, liquidity? Is there perhaps a burgeoning liquidity problem? What are you trying to tell us, Ripple? See, they don't expect us to be as erudite as we are, wise, perspicacious, but we are. We're on their tail. That's why, if you notice, once we're covering certain things, they'll come out like 3-4 days later making a statement like what Brad Garlinghouse just did, which sounded like it was addressing exactly what we've been uncovering. They know. They never expected us to be here, but we are. We are the inevitability. There's a balance to everything. Sure, there's a lot of nescient people. We're not that. We're the balance. We're the other side. Where we ask questions, we think, we brainstorm, use critical thinking. We're hot on the trail. The banks have been set up. Why? The old system is going down. So why would you not want to profit off of the old system going down? And rather than wait for it, since they're all getting older, I mean, these people are very up there in age. The Larry Finks of the world. They don't have time to wait around for the system to go down by itself. Yes or no? Put yourself in their shoes. I know you might not want to do that. A lot of people are, they'll say, well, those people, there's some evil entities up there. To each his, whatever you want to say. I get that. Strip that away because we need to think strategically. Put yourself in their shoes. Would you want to wait until maybe this happens after your demise, or you want to capitalize on it right now and see that victory, that glory right now while you live? They're not going to wait, in my humble opinion. So what that's doing is exacerbating this war that's been going on within the banking system that we've been covering here for years. I showed you 3 years ago. Didn't I tell you? There's a war going on between the banks, small, medium-sized banks, larger banks. Then within those groupings, there's battles happening because there's not full agreements at any time in any type of way on which direction they should actually go. So there's going to be those frictions. So it's exacerbating that and bringing it out to the public. Now you see them battling out here. They're saying, wait a minute, Genius Act. Wait, we don't want these. Some of them are saying, some are saying this. We don't want these stable coins. They're a threat to us. You've heard the ECB say it. You've heard the BIS say it, right? Why would they say that if they're for it? You've heard the Bank of England now come out and say it. Now you're hearing US banks say it. But wait, I thought stablecoins were all the rage. Folks, they're not all the rage. They are an illusion, a smokescreen. The native tokens, notice how the native token companies, bank coin companies, are flourishing right now. They're all happy. They're all teeth. They're talking down on their opponents like Swift because they're in such a dominant position. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do that. They would not be able to do that. They know that the researchers on the ground like myself and you see and are exposing how these systems are being pulled back, how they're waning in power. Swift doesn't have global reach anymore. The banks are revolting against Swift because of the deadline. They only have a small percentage of banks that have acquiesced to the ISO deadline, which is really representative of a much larger rebellion. It's not about ISO. It's about Swift system as a whole and preferred DLTs. If I'm going to work with this preferred DLT like XRPL or Ripple, which a lot of them are, well, what do I need to utilize Swift for? If I'm using Swift, I can't even trust you to work with the East. And I need to do business in the East because you have this battle going on and you've chosen to become a pistol for the West. They know this. They know this. Okay, so I said all of that. That's all necessary to come here. XRP. Now, Ripple has said XRP made for the banks. What would it take for XRP to become that source of liquidity for them, for banks to be able to, in financial institutions, to be able to draw from that liquidity of XRP to replace any liquidity loss from stable coins, or if banks were to almost, have problems, they're on the verge of collapse, fill that gap where the FDIC can't perform, etc. All it would take is XRPs. And I know this is future. I'm prognosticating a little bit. We're thinking forward. We're using a future eye, if you will. OK, I'm not talking about today, because when I say a market cap means nothing when it comes to XRP. Nothing. Use Google, use your AI, ask it if it matters when it comes to things like this. No, it doesn't. Not when you're dealing with such an asset. It does not. Trillions of dollars. It can move trillions of dollars. All it takes is trillions of dollars of value to move through XRP, which is definitely possible if it's utilized by a multitude of banks, like how Ripple intends, SBI intends, Volante intends, all these companies intend. And I believe more companies will use XRP and XRPL outright than probably will work with Ripple. They can build outright on it. All it takes, folks, is for trillions of dollars to flow through XRP to raise the liquidity up, to raise the value up of XRP, which is what it's designed to do. 1. 2, it would have to become a tier 1 asset. Who decides that? The Basel Committee, etc. We've talked about them over the years. A tier 1 asset. So when I say it has to become a tier 1 asset, it just has to become like a tier 1 asset. At this point, the rule book has to be thrown out of the window. Everything is being retooled. New financial system coming in. Regulations are being loosened up. Everything is changing. Change is the only constant. We're witnessing that right now. So what would it need? Much higher value flowing through it. Definitely possible. Interbank payments, RWA, etc. Right? You heard what Brad Garlinghouse said that was good for XRP, right? That we just covered. Okay, all of those things. So they're setting XRP up. That's what Garlinghouse was letting us know. All of these different things are going to be good for XR. He said XRP specifically. Okay, so higher value flowing through XRP, definitely possible. So then the value raises, liquidity rises, but also that stabilizes the value of XRP. So it's not all, there's not all this volatility. There's not all these fluctuations. And if majorly, and this also calls something into question, if at some point, since Ripple claimed multiple times that XRP is made for the banks, right? The ones who XRP was made for decide to actually go out and grab up tons of XRP, which I believe has already begun. You see them starting XRP treasuries or discussing it, right? What do you think that's for? They've been gobbling up XRP even before they discussed XRP treasuries. They were gobbling it up. You had companies like Sentiment showing these large purchases, and everybody was questioning, including myself, who's doing that? Although I scratched my head and I was saying to myself, I think I know. I'm assuming, but I think I know. What do you think that's for? It was made for the banks, financial institutions. They're going to take the XRP, in my humble opinion. Why wouldn't they? If they don't, they're foolish. Why let retail still have a heavy hand involved? Some retailers still going to have XRP. I mean, if what people say is true, some people claim they're never going to sell their XRP. That's what they say. I don't know if it's true or not what they're going to do. I'm just saying, not financial advice. But most are not like that. They're going to sell their XRP, and those banks are going to get that XRP off the market so that they have that piece on the chessboard. My apologies. They have that piece on the chessboard that was literally designed for them. Once they do that, it can serve its purpose. Bridge currency, liquidity, etc. Right? And if that happens, then that price will go intergalactic. It has no choice. No choice. And they will profit from it wildly. Keep that in mind. That's got to be at the core of thoughts right now, is that they want to profit mostly, or the most, the lion's share from XRP. This is the way you do it. Set the banks up with stable coins so it destabilizes them. At some point, because they're already waving in the wind, they're already weak. If anything happens, these stable coins ensure those deposits are going to rapidly take liquidity, value out of those bank accounts. Banks will collapse. Gold will skyrocket. Bitcoin will skyrocket. XRP will go intergalactic. At that time, there's still some time left. There's still some steps to go because clearly everything is not in place just yet. We're still in the nascent phase. We're still getting everything, regulations cleared up. Stable coins still going into place. We're witnessing the rigging of the system. We're witnessing the setup. That makes sense? I think that's what this is all about. That's why there's so much resistance. They see what's coming. Also, the small and medium-sized banks years ago were alleging that they were getting that this is what they were saying. We read it from their documents. This is not my opinion, okay? They used to have these meetings. They probably still do, but what happens a lot of times, these companies will have meetings, and you have researchers like myself or you. We'll analyze things, and they get a lot of views, folks. We trust me, you may not think it, but what we do is seen by some pretty powerful people. And I know because a lot of powerful people have reached out to me. That's how I know. So what happens, they see that. Sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes you get some support. If you're to believe it's genuine, sometimes you do not. And so they'll change things where now nobody gets to see that. Now that they don't put this particular document out here, or they put it behind a wall, you have to sign in to see it. That's for a reason, right? But back then it wasn't like that. And we saw the small and medium-sized banks complaining about being set up. This is what they alleged. I'm not saying it's true. Set up by the larger banks so that they would be sabotaged in a variety of ways so the big banks could take over them, could take them over. I'm probably not saying that correctly. But you get what I'm saying? Okay, so if that was then, what do you think that they're feeling now that a large portion of smaller and medium-sized banks are very much injured, in a bad position because of commercial real estate over 300%, over 300% over the threshold, and they could go down any minute, and they're about to be forced into this system with these stable coins that make them even more vulnerable. They know something's coming. People talk about a reset all the time, not realizing this is part of it. This is part of that. I mean, reset, it's just change. Change is always happening. Things rise, things fall. Old things go away, new things are born. Is that a reset? I guess you could use that wording. It's just change. A change is taking place right now, and they're getting ready. It's not just XRP. I just use that because it's at the forefront of all of these different things. But it's XRP, it's Chainlink, it's Solana. They're all part of this one new financial system, this one web that's being woven everywhere. Look up everything that I've been saying. Check me on everything. Google search it, Yahoo search it, use your AI. I want you to see everything for yourself. Make up your own mind. You may come to a different conclusion than I have. That's good. The whole point is to spark the minds. And for you to trust yourself. If I can do that, I did my job. Spark a mind, make you trust yourself. Most people trust external forces more than they trust themselves. That's a dangerous game. But hey, to each his own. So then listen to this. These sources here are the Atlantic Council as well as the Indian Express. It says here, if a stablecoin issuer is required to hold its reserve assets in a bank, the money becomes a large uninsured wholesale deposit at the bank. If there is a sudden, quote, bank run on that stable coin, it could be a run caused by anything. It doesn't have to just be the stable coin. It'll be on cash. It'll be on stable coin. You know how this goes when there's a bank run. Everything's coming out of those accounts. Everything. But we're focused on stable coins here. That's what's at hand. But let's keep going. I just wanted to make that clear. The stable coin, they make it sound like it's only going to be about the stable coins. No, it's not. No, it's not. The stable coin issuer would quickly withdraw its multi-billion-dollar deposit from the bank. This sudden massive withdrawal could trigger a liquidity crisis. What solves that? You want me to believe, I would vehemently disagree, but do you want me to believe they're going to use an asset that was made for them, XRP, or any of these liquidity tokens, that they could use like an ace in their back pocket, a get out of jail free card, so to speak, metaphorically speaking. They could use at any time to bail themselves out. They don't need the FDIC. They don't have to worry too much about stable coins if they play the game the right way. They're just going to leave that on the table? If they do, they're foolish. I don't see that happening. What I do see is most regular people not believing, most regular people selling at a certain point and getting out of Dodge City, out of the way. Banks gobbling that up, them being wise enough to be quiet. Shh, they don't say a thing. They don't get you too bullish. They don't hint at this whatsoever. And they know most people are not going to do the research. They don't know what they hold. And so they keep quiet. It's their greatest weapon, silence. And the greatest enemy of the people is knowledge that they cannot access, or they do not have a will to access. And then at some point, them gobbling up XRP, it starts with treasuries. It starts with ETFs. It starts with outright ownership anonymously, because you don't know who's buying what. It's just reported, and then everybody just moves on. They hear what Sentiment says, other companies say about these large purchases happening. Then it's just forgotten. It starts that way. And then it picks up a little bit, like the boiling frog. You don't realize that the temperature is getting turned up when it is. And little by little, they take over XRP over the years until they can pull this off. The biggest value reaping of all time. I don't know how to better put that. The biggest value reaping of all time. Set up like most things today by the banks, by the large asset managers who run the world. They run the world. All the top people bow down to them. You think they're going to let this be out of their control? No way. No way. It's all about value. The value they wield like a weapon so they can exact their power upon whatever they see fit. Crypto is one of the fastest money makers of all time. You should know that. Crypto NFTs. There's no way they don't utilize this aspect. I'm going to leave you with this. We'll move on to a little bit of Bitcoin news. They're complaining about stable coins. How do you solve that problem? If it's going to be forced on them, you think they don't counterbalance that somehow? How? The FDIC doesn't protect them. The false liquidity of stablecoins doesn't protect them. We know that's not real. We already saw it. We saw them be depegged before. And things have only gotten worse for the banks. They've gotten better for bank coin holders, for sure. For sure, we move closer and closer to a certain degree of certainty. They don't use this counterbalance? You sure about that? I had so much evidence, but I was just going off the top of my head here, but I gave you a lot of stuff that you could look up if you wanted to, if you were interested. Maybe we'll come back to this once more, and then I'll give a little bit more detailed information from some sources that people, I don't know if people respect these official sources or not. I don't know. But I guess maybe it brings a little bit more validity to it. But if you look this stuff up, you're going to find it. So now let's move on here to a little bit of Bitcoin news. That's potent stuff right there, to know that if they use XRP in the way that it could be utilized, and no one's talking about that, it can be inflated for liquidity to save them, to bail them out, to provide the gap filler for liquidity that's lost from stable coins. FDIC doesn't have enough money. It all makes sense. FDIC doesn't have enough money. Banks are on the verge of collapse. Things have gotten worse. Now they're introducing stable coins. This this insane variable, then you have to ask, why were stablecoins painted as something great? I didn't paint it that way. I told you all along, watch the videos. Not a single video has been taken down. And I've been saying since the beginning, something doesn't seem right here. Stablecoins aren't stable. BIS said that, but I lived it. We lived it. So why did they paint them as this great thing? Unless it's a setup. I mean, it's not the only option. I'm not an absolutist. It's not the only option, not the only possibility. But it's a very prominent possibility, is it not? All right. So now let's get here. Appreciate you all being here with me. If you haven't already, if you like this type of content, take those powerful hands of yours, hit that like button a few times. All right. So this is actually interesting because we were just talking about Coinbase. This article is titled "Samsung Brings Bitcoin Access to 75 Million People Via Coinbase Partnership." Definitely bullish for Bitcoin, for all of crypto, really. They're saying Bitcoin here, but if they're bringing access, Samsung adds Coinbase crypto access for 75 million Galaxy device users. What do they mean by that? Let's find out what they mean by that, because did they not have Coinbase access before? Galaxy owners, it's from October 4th, 2025. It's just strange to me. Galaxy owners in the US will get exclusive Coinbase One access. Oh, okay. Through Samsung wallet integration. Samsung is teaming up with Coinbase to give 75 million Galaxy device owners in the U.S. access to the exchange's priority trading service, making it the largest single consumer distribution Coinbase has executed. The Samsung Galaxy's biggest crypto bet to date, the company said. So this could be interesting. Access is part of the game. It's part of the game. But anybody who wanted to be involved with crypto I guess, is just easeability of access, right? You're going to get on your computer. People have their tablets out more than their computers these days, from what I've seen. Folks, they got a laptop here, and they have a tablet here. Okay, they're going to be able to access these things one way or the other. I mean, unless they're just wrapped up in one ecosystem, I suppose, but I don't know. I like to diversify. I don't like to wrap myself up in any one ecosystem. Like, for example, Apple. Like, a lot of people have Apple computer, Apple tablet, iPhone, which does make things easier if you just need to be in that ecosystem, I suppose. But I'm not like that. I see a lot of people are not like that as well. So Samsung Pay is also being made available as a payment option in Coinbase accounts. As such, crypto tools will be available in the same place phone users already store payment cards, transit passes, and ID. Really? Now that's interesting. Okay, see a little bit more clarification. This is good. Quote, "Our mission is to bring more than 1 billion people on chain. And that starts with meeting them where they already are on their phones," unquote, said Shan Agarwal, Chief Business Officer at Coinbase. Well, Coinbase knows it's their time to shine. They were one of the few that was arguing back against the banks' legitimate claim when they talk about bank account erosion and deposit draining and erosion. And Coinbase was saying how that's a myth. What? Coinbase? You could say, you could play that game where you could say erosion is a myth because, crypto is just now being unleashed. There hasn't been that much time to watch erosion happen. It's not like crypto has been interwoven in the legacy system 100% all of this time. No, they're just being unleashed now. But as far as bank accounts being drained and bank runs, et cetera, that it can exacerbate, that's not an illusion. You were there, Coinbase. You were a part of that. You saw it. We lived through that. So I don't know why they would say that or how they make that argument, but to each his own. I know Coinbase, this is a business and business is booming. It's their time to shine. So they're going to say whatever it takes to bring in that value, to make that money. I get that. I can respect that. So here we go. Let's go here. Samsung Coinbase global expansion. Yeah, so this is very good for Bitcoin, all the top cryptos. Those are the ones that are going to be taken seriously. They're getting some coverage. And as you watch mainstream media cover the top cryptos more and more, it's going to tell you about the companies that are getting behind the push. because mainstream media, make no mistake about it, in my humble opinion, from what I've experienced, and I was in that field long time ago. Of course, you could say oh man, maybe things changed. Maybe I doubt it, but they're very much controlled. In my humble opinion, from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, they're very much controlled. So once they start covering crypto a little bit more, the companies are giving the green light, saying, go ahead, say good things about crypto, run my crypto up, pump it. So I will watch out for that. That's a major catalyst in my humble opinion. But as of now, this is going to be good. The top cryptos are going to benefit. That's my point. Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum. Let me throw Ethereum in there. Sometimes I forget because I don't deal with Ethereum. Ethereum, Solana, Chainlink should be in there. I don't know why to this day, even though Chainlink is doing such a great job, why it's not more bullish. It's super bullish, but it doesn't get the coverage that the others do. But those top ones there are going to benefit. And then there's another level beneath them. Also great bank coins, but the popular ones go first. That's just the way it is, right? All right, so I'm getting a little bit tired. I have other work I have to do. Let me go handle that very quickly. I appreciate every single one of you. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.